All right, if everyone's on board, welcome everyone to the second of our grad talks, our virtual grad talks. I'm Todd Pascal, and with Professor Shen, we will talk to you today about networking and making industry connections. All right, so I want to start off with a survey that was conducted recently, I think 2 years ago, of about 491 businesses. And they were surveying people who were recently hired in the previous cycle, so in the previous year. And they asked them what was the most effective tool that they found in order to actually land the job. And what it turned out was that the referral from an employee, someone who was actually working at the company, accounted for 1/3 of those hires, and is by far the largest single contributor or main contributor to them getting the job. What's particularly interesting is from this plot is that things like social media, using Facebook, LinkedIn, and so forth, accounted for only about 6% of the hires. So it accounted for about 5 times less of the hires than the employee referral did. Next to the employee referral, the next largest single contributor was a staffing firm, so professional firms that you will hire to recruit, to act as recruiting agents, basically, to go in between you and the employee. So what this means then is that by developing strong networks and by developing very strong connections, instead of paying someone effectively, you're equally as likely to get the job by doing sort of strong networking than you are by sort of hiring a firm. And so today we hope to give you some insights into how to develop better connections and better networking skills to increase your chances of getting hired in industry. Here's another survey that was done recently by this performance-based hiring research.net. And what they found is that in terms of the types, the most important things that people reported as being important for them getting the job, again, we had networking being sort of across all the board being the most important. But what is particularly interesting is the percentage of the actual candidates that, so they broke this down by the percentage of the actual candidates. And so what they found effectively is that even if you're underemployed or unemployed, then networking leads, is about 50% of the time networking leads to you getting the job, compared to just randomly applying, let's say, which is about 40%. If you're actually employed, you're actively employed, the numbers are about the same, 40% for applying kind of blindly and 42% from network contacts. But if you're sort of employed, but you're trying to sort of get a better job, then it becomes even more important to have strong networks. About 60% of those jobs, which represents about 50 to 20% of the people in the working force, 60% of those ends up being due to networking, as opposed to only 22% for sort of cold, random applying. And if you're someone who is already employed and you're not actually looking for a job, you're pretty content with the job that you're in, but you move to another job, maybe for better benefits or higher pay or something like that, then in that case, then the networking is even more important. So who you know at these companies that you're eventually going to end up with becomes even more important in that case. So the take-home message here, of course, is that networking and building connections is critically important at any stage of the application process, whether you're looking for a job actively, or you're already in a job and looking for a better job, or even if you're already in a job and not looking for another job. The networks that you develop becomes sort of the defining factor in whether or not you can actually get a new job or another job, as it were. So the general take-home messages that we're going to try to leave you with is that You want to use your networks, your back door, to gain access to the hidden job market. These are sometimes jobs that may not even get posted, or sometimes it's an internal hire. People are looking for a very specific skill set, and they're only willing to look at someone who gets recommended by someone who's already working within the company. And so you want to develop very strong in the field that you're interested in working in so that you can gain access to this hidden job market. To do that, we will give you a bunch of different ways of doing that. One of the ways we will suggest is that you leverage your social networks. So these are not just places for posting cute kitten videos. They're not just databases. They're effectively essential tools for developing stronger connections. And I have a quote here from one of a CEO from a Fortune 500 company here in San Diego. And what she said was that job seekers, that networking is not trying to meet as many people as possible. It's about meeting a few well-connected people who can vouch for your ability and who are willing to refer you to a few other well-connected people. And finally, what we will try to impress upon you is that once you have made that connection, that the most effective way for you to leverage that connection in order to get the job is actually do what comes most naturally to you, and that you want to be yourself, you want to be dynamic, and you want to come across as different from everyone else that is in the job market. Okay, so let's go through maybe a quick overview of 5 basic kind of bullet points that you need to consider when you're trying to start up your professional networks. The first is that, if let's say you're a recent graduate and you're trying to develop a network, how do you go about that? Well, the important thing to know is that you already know how to network within the sort of Jacob School and within your PhD program or your master's program in some cases, or your postdoctoral studying. You will have already sort of started meeting people who you will eventually end up working with. These are your peers, these are your colleagues, these are your lab mates, these are your friends. And so start with them, start with your inner circle. And so the idea here is that these people that you already know, they're the kind of primary source of, of referrals. They're the primary source of people who can speak honestly and candidly about who you are, your work ethic. And so start with them, and for whatever meaningful relationships you have with them, try to sort of grow those relationships and don't make it all about business. Because again, the best way in which someone can refer you is not just to say, yeah, I know this person and they're good, but if they can speak to something that's or speak to a knowledge of you that is deeper than sort of just some superficial knowledge, that comes across very strongly for someone who's sitting on the other hand, who's hoping to hire someone who is going to become an integral member of a larger team. And so once you have these people in your inner circle and you're talking to them, of course, you don't want to make it seem as if it's just a transaction, that you're only talking to them at that particular point because you're interested in getting a job. You really want to make sure that you sort of develop a deeper relationship with these people in your inner circle, and then sort of their recommendations of you or their referrals of you, that comes as a side product of developing a meaningful relationship. So to that end, whenever you're talking to people in general, whether it is in your inner circle or it's recruiters or at interviews, you have to know your boundaries. Very few people, unless you're in the business of hard selling, and very few of us are, unless you're in that business, it's usually not a good idea to make a hard sell. It's usually not a good idea to sort of become this kind of used car salesman, right? You don't want to push things beyond where the relationship is and beyond where the people will be comfortable. And part of doing that is to try to understand from the perspective of the person who's hiring you, try to understand what problems that they're having. So they're usually people put out an ad for a job description. They have a very specific idea as to the sort of person that they want to come into their organization, whether that is to solve a very specific problem, or it's to lead to some new solutions that is not that cannot be foreseen right away. And so it's very important then to just read the job description of those people, and to make sure that you can add something valuable and you can say something intelligent if and when you meet them, so that once you plant those little seeds that, hey, I am good for this because of X, Y, and Z, that ends up paying off later. They remember sort of your unique capabilities to help them solve their problems. And of course, we're in business and in industry. So if you can demonstrate that you are someone who can help them solve their problems, your chances of getting hired increases significantly. So you've started with your inner circle. So here we say begin with the people you already know. We've talked a little bit about that. The general idea is that you don't need to meet new people to start networking effectively. You can just start with your family and friends. You can start with the university alumni database for people in the field that you're interested in. You can start with professors or people who you've worked with through your graduate career or postdoc career, and people who've given you guidance. Those are the sort of people who have an intimate knowledge of you and are much more likely to give a very personal and strong recommendation than someone you meet at some sort of recruitment event. So those should be your primary source. Those should be your primary material. Family and friends, of course, it goes without saying that they will be your strongest advocates. But even if these are you don't have any families, let's say you don't have any family and friends in the field that you're interested in, trying to sort of develop the language as to how you would go about talking to someone in that field with your family and friends can be critical as well. I mean, in last week, we talked about sort of giving good presentations, and the take-home message there is that you have to practice. If you want to become good at something, you just have to practice. And in the same way here, if you want to become good at networking, and start with people that you already know and practice with them. Take every opportunity to sort of develop those strong kind of professional relationships with people you already know. And so that when you do start speaking with people in the field that you're interested in, and that sort of skill set has been developed and it comes sort of naturally to you. Okay, so you've started with all of your friends, you've tapped out that resource, you've gone through the alumni database, you've talked to your professors. Now you're on to where you're going to events to actually meet people who are in the field, and you're hoping to use that sort of networking opportunity in order to land a job. So what are some tips and tricks there? Well, the one thing that we will say is that when you're approaching someone new, find a way to help them first, meaning that if this is someone at some sort of event and they have a very specific need that they're interested in solving, and so if you can show how you can fulfill that need, then that immediately makes a very strong kind of connection in their minds and in your mind, and that then leads to further conversations down the road. One tip in going to these networking events in particular and talking to these folks is that you should never assume that their time or advice comes free of charge. So they are there to meet people that they hope will help them solve a particular problem. And so that means that their time and their advice is valuable, and you should treat it as such. Their time is valuable. They're investing a certain amount of emotional energy and certainly their time to meet you. So pay attention to what they're saying. All of the usual rules of talking to folks. Maintain good eye contact, listen very carefully, and try to offer some semblance as to how you may be suited, if you are, how you may be suited to solving their unique problem. of course, before you even get to these events, you should research the people, the company that you'll be approaching, so that you can come up with on the fly easy ways, or at least you can come up with ways in which you can definitely contribute to the company, either the culture of the company, the research of the company, or to solve the particular problem. And the important thing I think here is that you should do this here without expecting anything in return. There is no obligation on their part to hire you because you've showed up to these events and you've researched the company and you've listened to them and you've offered some advice in terms of how you may help them. If you get rejected, don't show any disappointment. There will be many more rejections than there are acceptances, but you only really need one acceptance. So the rejections, learn from them, what to do, what not to do. But remember that again, these are people who have very specific, usually have very specific ideas as to what they want. And if you don't, for whatever reason, end up being a good fit, then that is not an indictment on you or your character or your qualifications. It just means that it's not a good fit. And so, so usually, most of the times, these are not personal sort of rejections. They're just issues of fit. And even if they are personal, just always be professional when meeting folks, even if you don't get a good outcome. But let's say that you do get a good outcome. Let's say that you've met someone and they're really interested in you. They encourage you to sort of apply for a specific job or to send them your CV or something along those lines. Once remember that establishing the contact is the most important part of this entire enterprise. Once you've made the contact, this can be someone that you can go back to forever. And so maybe this particular job may not work out, but you can sort of use that connection in the future. And so the one thing that you don't want to do is that once you've established this contact, you don't want to just start asking for favors right away, because then it makes it seem as if this is purely transactional, that this relationship that you've sort of initiated now is only to service your needs and not necessarily to help them. And so, you establish the contact and you show them how you can provide something valuable. And effectively, through subsequent conversations, it will come up just kind of organically that this is the sort of thing that they would want from you. And in which case, if you're well qualified for it, then that leads to a better outcome in terms of you getting the job and you straight away asking for a favor from them. Okay, so you have these folks you've met, whether they're family, friends, or they're people you've met in a networking event. You've established a relationship with them. How do you go about kind of cultivating that relationship so that eventually you can get considered for a job? So the important point here is that you need to follow up. So let's say you've met someone, you've had a good discussion, you've exchanged business cards, or they've encouraged you to apply to the position. The one thing you don't want to do is let that relationship collect dust. As soon as you get home, shoot off an email thanking them for meeting you, thanking them for talking to you, mentioning the specific thing that you talked about within your meeting, and saying that you would love to follow up at a later point to talk some more about opportunities and to talk some more about how you think that you might be able to help them solve some of their problems. And again, even if you do all of this, it's possible, sometimes even likely, that may not lead to an offer right away. However, if you keep these relationships alive by always reaching out to these people, once a month even, going back to them and just checking in with them, then that keeps that relationship going, so that if something comes up in the future, then they have you on their radar. because once you disappear off the radar, you're going to have to start all over again in this whole process. And so it's important to sort of keep I like to say, keep an active list of people who you've developed good relationships with generally in the field, and just check in maybe quarterly or so to see if there's anything new that popped up that that they think you might be well suited for. Another important thing is to reaffirm your intention to follow through. And obviously, if you tell them that you will do something, you tell them that I will email you my CV, then do it. If you tell them that you would send them some reference to some work you've done before, then do it. So whatever it is that you say that you're going to do, it's very important that you do it. That makes sure that the relationship that you initiate ends up becoming a lasting relationship. So again, never ask for a job directly. Instead of asking for a job directly, what you can do is ask for advice and information about the sort of jobs that are currently being considered. That sort of subtle change does a couple things. One, it does not put them in an awkward position where if they were not going to consider you for the job anyway, then it does not put them in that position where they have to say, well, actually, we don't think you're well suited, or so forth. If you're just asking for advice and information, then they can provide that freely, whether or not they're actively looking to offer you the job or not. Generally asking for advice and information shows to them that you're not really interested in asking others to solve the problem for you. You're really trying to figure out what the best fit is. And the fit goes both ways. You have to fit into them, but also the job itself has to fit into sort of how you work, how you proceed. And then, of course, if you ask for information and advice from them, then that's just another way for them to get to know you better and to sort of cement the relationship and make the relationship last a bit longer. And so the final thing that I want to say is that networking is not just about getting what you want. It's a two-way street. The people who are there are interested in solving a particular problem. And if you can show them how you will be instrumental in solving that problem, then they're much more likely to look favorably on you when a position or this position or future position comes up. Remember that you already know how to network. You've been doing this now for some of you for 4, 5, 6 years, for some of you for longer. You have a bunch of people that are around you, your colleagues, your advisors. And so that is already a professional network that you have developed. And so lean on that when you come time to sort of going into industry. Never assume, again, that the time that the people that you meet at networking events are free of charge. You want them to get to know you and to develop a relationship. And once they know and they trust you, the key then is to maintain this as a lasting relationship. And by lasting relationships, what we mean that it's not just transactional. It's not just I give, you give, but it's also a trusted relationship that people actually get to know you and trust you in the long term. All right. So for some more useful tips, I will switch over to Dr. Shan to proceed.
Okay. Let me share my slides. Okay. Yeah, so thanks, Todd, for a very good kind of strategical understanding and explanation of the ways and the strategies to do networking and prepare better for job hunting. Okay, so what I'm going to share with you guys is probably something very close to what Dr. Pascal has just mentioned, but in another way that we try to have kind of a simple process, if not calling the process, a simple strategy to go through the network. If you haven't been been able to really form a strong network. There are a couple of things that we can do if you feel that you don't know too many people, you feel you want to build a stronger network and want to know more people. Okay, so as for any industry, I think it applies to the same philosophy. And so number one, I think yeah, definitely the best way is to start from the back door. If you have some very close relationship, you think you can trust, you can send your CV to people to help you refer to the HR department to get a faster track. That is definitely the best way. However, if you start from a dilemma that you don't know anyone, you want to know more people, I think there's one thing you still want to consider is the social media. Okay, so because sometimes you don't need to spend any money, you don't have to really spend too much time, yeah, to really talk to people to start the dialogue or start the conversation. So definitely I think about social media, and the first step to identify some people you really want to connect. For example, you want to go to Bay Area, you want to try to find the people if you think they might fall into a network. For example, you want to find a few companies that you like in 2 or 3 years, you want to find a job, and then you start to build a network. Okay, so you can easily find the people who work in the field you are interested in, instead of find good names or big names, because you have such a big gap between your level and higher level people. But at the moment, at least you can find a group of people that work in your field that might be helpful for you in the next few years. So you can start to engage with them on social media, such as like everyone knows such a few common medium. But the thing is that don't be shy. I know even for me, I also daily I received a couple of greetings from my LinkedIn, from my Facebook. So although sometimes I don't reply, but as time goes on, you know the name. Okay, so everyone, if I would say everyone, at least most people still want to be, connected. Okay, and the people want to get attention. Okay, so if you pay attention to them on Twitter, on Facebook, on YouTube, yeah, they will for over time they will still recognize you if you had a chance to meet with them. Okay, so if you don't have a very strong network, social media is still a good choice to get started at low cost. Okay, at low cost. Okay, so the next step, okay, the next step definitely is to find a chance to meet. Okay, to meet. Face-to-face meeting is always effective. Okay, so connecting on social media is something you can get started. You can constantly do with very minimum effort. Okay, but talking face-to-face is probably still the best way to connect with people, because they see who you are, they can remember your face. Okay, they can have a stronger impression of your personality, of your field, also your interests, of your capability. Okay, so the idea here is to find any chance. Okay, find as many as possible chances to go to conferences, to go to workshops, to go to festivals, concerts, whatever you can find a chance to meet a bunch of people. Okay, attend as many as possible. Sometimes you will feel this will feel a lot of financial constraints, because you cannot pay a lot of tickets, and even sometimes go to conference, the registration fee can be expensive. Okay, but sometimes as a graduate student or a postdoc, the advantage is that your advisor might be able to pay for you. Okay, and then if you go to conference, you can share rooms with your folks, and then you can significantly reduce the cost. Okay, so even for example, in UCS, there are always some good talks, good seminars, good workshops that you can go. So try to maximize the possibilities to meet people through these local conferences that will be able to help you to open the door to potentially meet more people. Again, if you want to go to conferences, as Dr. Pascal mentioned, you need to be prepared. Okay, you know who you are, you need to know your boundary. Okay, you need to know your capability, and then always be prepared. Okay, to have your business card. You don't have one. Okay, have your business cards, And then you don't need to have your CV on your hand every time, okay? But at least you start a connection, start to meet people in face is a very, very good start point, okay? Yeah, so this is something I would strongly recommend you guys to do. So I even, from my personal experience, I know our dean, El Pisano, even people for these days, they think a business card is not important because it's not a fashion anymore. But in professional events, still if you have a business card, people will recognize, will regard that. Okay, so I see once that I meet a bunch of people from a Belgian company, one of the biggest company in producing chemicals, and they come to work with us, and they try to start some contracts, and then the dean has about 30 minutes meeting with them. The first thing the dean came to room is to go to his pocket and then take out a few cards and then exchange cards with those folks, those visitors, using his two hands. So I really be kind of impressed by this kind of professional behavior that the dean showed us. So because I didn't even have a car, so start from that and then to that to be really important to have your business card, especially when you go to very professional meetings. So that's always something you can do such a preparation. Okay. So second step, go there and then be prepared to meet people face to face. Okay. So number three, you need to memorize, or you need to know that every conversation is a network opportunity. Okay. You go to conference, you want to meet some people, but people might be able to show interest to meet you as well. For example, you go to give a presentation, and then people will say hi to you, and then try to talk about with your research or with your business. Even there's some younger or junior graduate student, they wanted to meet with you. Okay, you cannot imagine like 5 years or 10 years later what position they will be. Okay, so don't lose any opportunities to talk with people, because every conversation might count. Okay, every conversation might be able to help you to start a new network, to start a new connection. Okay, it doesn't mean that every connection will lead to an opportunity, but they will start to build your stronger network. They will start to have you to know more people, to strengthen your network. Okay, so because more opportunities will come in, they will fall into your network. Okay, so if you don't make such an initial connection, you will never get such a chance to expand or extend your network. Okay, so once you in a conference, in a meeting, even just randomly and bump to people and then say hi and then start to talk about your research, talk about your business, and then try to ask other people to introduce their work with to you. They will help to get you to start with a new connection, and then with the following step to maintain the connection, they will help you to build a stronger network over the time. Okay, and then this large network will sometimes bring you new opportunities. Okay, bring you new opportunities. So every conversation is important. Okay, is important. Okay, and then once you talk with people and then you know the people in face and then follow up. Okay, there are some ways to help you to get connected. So also as Dr. Pascal mentioned, so try to get some form of contact information when you talk with people. Okay, and then you want to be proactive, take the initiative to follow up. Okay, so I mean, some people are just not good at it as you, or I mean, as good as you to, I mean, or as bad as you to maintain the relationship, and also be prepared that people just forget. Okay, like me, like you, like everyone, they just forget to follow up because of they are so busy, and then in the last few months they just being occupied by some other business. But still, when you get a chance, start to rekindle the conversation by following up. Okay, so that's why at the beginning, when you meet with people, when you go to a conference, and then when you go back, try to connect, try to organize your information by writing down their name, and then put the name into, for example, if you have small notes, you have Excel sheets, you have a text file, you can just put all the people into the document, and then you can easily find such information when you want to relocate the people you have met before. so you can follow up the discussion. And especially if you have some little details that when you meet with them and what kind of interesting stories you talk about, so you can follow up by showing them that you really care about what they had said, what they have said to you. So this will definitely help them to bring the interest again, and then they will be happy to, or at least happier to follow up with you. Okay, so don't be shy, don't be afraid to follow up with your initial contact, even they don't give you any response in the next couple of days or next a few weeks. So because that happens very often, especially it is you to be proactively start the conversation. It is you to want to maintain such a connection. So it's okay through email, they don't see your face, they don't see, what you are doing at this moment. They don't say you are frustrated or you are disappointed. This is totally okay, because it's up to you to really want to strengthen your network. So, but in the end, you want to really realize that if not always, but often people will appreciate the effort to connect with them. Okay, just think about it yourself. If someone wants to make a connection with you, and they want to say hi to your Facebook, say hi to your LinkedIn, and then try to ask you to put them into your friend list, will you be happy to do so? At least I will be happy to do so in most of cases. Okay, especially you feel the people really feel into your field, and then they might be able to talk with you later. Okay, so this is something you want to do to keep your connection going on, to maintain and strengthen and tight your network. Okay, follow up and then use some detailed information to follow up, so that those people can really match your face, match your name. They can easily remember you and keep memorizing you over the time. So just maintain such a connection and then do follow up over the time. Okay, over the time. So again, so it's about a mutual interest. Okay, in your network, in your relationship, it's a mutual interest. It is about give and receive. Okay, so any industry is the same. Okay, it's about the forming mutually beneficial relationship. Okay, so this relationship will be as much as about giving and they receive, and then at the same time they will give you and then you receive good opportunities. So every time you meet people, think about what you can do to help with them, as just Dr. Pascal mentioned. Before you jump to ask questions, ask favors, ask for opportunities, think about, okay, what you can do to help them. Okay, so this will start from listen to their interest, listen to their background, listen to their introduction, okay, and ask for questions about what their interest is, okay, what their field is, what their plan is, and what their background is. So in this case, you know them better, okay? You can probably find out their challenges, find out their problems. You can offer some simple suggestions to show your care to them, okay? So in this case, you will last the dialogue and you can extend the conversation, okay? And then you show your trust, you show your interest to them, they will pay back, they will show trust and they will show interest to you, okay? So these opportunities and the relationship will be built from such a mature benefit, okay? So and then they will help you to last the relationship longer, okay? So only in this way, by giving, and then you will receive a better advice, you will receive a better conversation, and you will be able to maintain a longer relationship, okay? So about give and receive. So this is the mature interest, okay? It is totally fine from the initial dialogue, you didn't get anything more favorable towards your sides, but always people will appreciate, okay? Once they show such appreciation, or you deliver this appreciation to them, okay, they will tend to have to be more interested in maintain the relationship with you, okay? And later on, once you have some need, you have some favor, you will have a less, or you have zero and psychological barrier to raise your question or raise your, and to ask for favor from them. Okay, so this is all about how you prepare, how you maintain the relationship to the point that you will be able to potentially ask for favor. Okay, so don't worry about the beginning. Okay, so start from giving and then you will expect receiving. Okay, So again, very importantly, use as many as referrals you can have. Okay, so use your best friends. So they will be the first resource or best resource to help you. If you are graduate students, definitely your advisors and your mentors will help you. So for example, as professors, we receive also we will receive a lot of messages or emails from our colleagues, from our network in the industry over the time to ask for student applicants to their job, to their internship. So this will be something we will pass to you guys easily. Okay, so if you want to step further, you can go to your colleagues and go to our alumni. For example, in UCSD, we have an alumni network. Okay, so try to find such resource, find referrals, so they will help you to build a network. They will at least help to introduce you, okay, to the person you want to talk to. Okay, so sometimes you can also do this in a mature way. So you can elevate yourself from a desperate, if I not say desperate, if this is not a good word, from a PhD who wanted to connect to a connector, to a super connector that can potentially help others. Okay, so if you can use your skills, whatever you can have your skills, you feel a sense. Okay, you can feel a sense of gratefulness towards the person who introduced you, right? Who introduced you. You can do the same thing. So you can introduce others. For example, you know two people that they potentially have the mutual interest that you can help them to put the connection. You can do so to establish new connection for yourself. Because once they know such a connection, they will put you into a larger connection, okay, a larger network. So you will see such introducer as a leader, okay, as someone who was well connected, as a person who is selfless. So overall, you become a giver, okay. So they will be happy to do the same thing for you, okay. So setting up an introduction for others will help you, okay, to step into a larger network. So in this case, you become a giver and you become part of the network, okay. You become part of the network, okay. So there's some ways to maintain your connection, maintain the relationship. Okay, so again, follow up through emails is always a good way and easy way and efficient way. Okay, so every other time, for example, you can share good news. For example, you get a promotion, you get awards. Okay, you get recognized in some organization. You share your news. You share your recent progress. For example, you are going to graduate. You obtain. You publish a very impactful papers, okay, impact papers, and then you're about to move to a new location, right? So you get a new position, and then you have your life changing. For example, you move from San Diego to Los Angeles, or from San Diego to New York, probably not New York in this moment, okay, to San Francisco, okay? So tell people that you have some life changes to have people connected, okay, with you. And if you know the birthday, for example, your girlfriends, your old friends, so if you know that you show some greetings and big days, for example, big holidays, big days, and then the date you can remember for others. So show some greetings and holiday greetings like Christmas, like New Year's, and send some simple message. Say hi is always helpful for people to remember you, to recall you. Okay. So sending some cards, these days e-cards is very popular, okay? So especially by the end of the year, you can probably prepare a simple or warming e-cards by putting some of your photos, happy photos, or even like unhappy photos, funny photos from your families, for example, and then you put them into e-cards and share to your friends, to your network, okay? So you feel comfortable, okay? You feel comfortable, you can do so, okay? So also, you have a chance to go to a conference. You have friends in the city. You can go to or try to arrange a meeting, arrange your visits, or arrange a drink with the friends. And then if there's opportunity, for such a trip, okay. So this will help you to strengthen your relationship and help you to further kind of tighten your friendship and network with your within your relationship. Okay, so these are a few useful tips you have realized. Just have to just emphasize these points. They can be very useful. You haven't realized, you can start to try out. You can start to use some of the tips. Okay, some of the tips. So in the end, you want to further read, you want to go directly to find more guidance and tips. So there's a book you can read. Okay, so hiring and getting hired. So this is a performance-based hiring handbook. You can refer to this this book. But in the end, what I want to say is that being connected is important, and expand your networking is important. It's important you start local, you start from your inner circle, and even you don't have a very strong network at this moment, start from social media is also a good way. Okay, and then you have to work daily, and you have to work every week, every month, to start to talk to new people, go to more conferences. Okay, and then care about each conversation, and then remember to keep your relationship by following up, by sending greetings, sending short emails, messages, and then by sending different ways of following up messages using cards. Okay, visit them and meet people. Okay, and then maintain a very strong network will help you to get more opportunities. And one day you want to find a job, want to change a job. Okay, you want a referral. Okay, you can easily find more resources. And at the same time, you can also offer help to others, to help others to find more opportunities, to get job opportunities. Okay, so this is what we can share with you guys, and I hope they can be helpful. Okay, if not very, okay, they can be useful. Okay, so the slides will be shared and the video is recorded. So you have more questions, I believe Dr. Pascal and me will be very happy to give further advices or potentially tips. Okay, thank you guys.
Yep, thanks everyone. If there